What's up, cats? Brody here. Wishing you a happy 2021, and don't know why you're even looking at me. Viewer takeover's about to start. Oh, and beware of falling pianos.
This is Viewer Takeover. We film every Monday night and bring it to YouTube every Tuesday as Viewer Takeover. Did I do that wrong? I don't know. Who cares? My name's Ryan Payton from this channel right here, PSVR Without Parole. And the guys to my right, the boys. Oh, wait. Holy crap. We got a new boy in the mix. This is Ryan Payton from Camouflaj joining us for this week's show. What's going on, Ryan?
Hey, guys. Thank you for having me on the show, and thanks to your listeners for tuning in. It's an honor. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Ryan Payton. I was the game director on Marvel's Iron Man VR, which so happened to be PSVR Without Parole's Game of the Year for 2020, which is an incredible honor. And that's why I'm here. I said I only come on the show if your audience selects this as the Game of the Year. So
we had to butter him up.
That was in the contract. So yeah,
Cats came through for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
And to his right, or maybe your left, my right, that's Dave from Dave Station VVVVR. Oh yeah.
I knew you were going to do it, but at least you didn't put so much stank on it this time. Sometimes it takes like 20 seconds for you to get through that whole thing.
Yeah. We're in a time crunch this week, Dave. And that guy on the right-hand side of the screen is AJ from The Underground. PSVR Underground.
I am underground.
Nice. Very topical. Very good. Guys, every week on Viewer Takeover, we like to thank a whole lot of people. And the first person we want to thank, of course, is Rody, the game cat, for that awesome Viewer Takeover introduction. I don't know, guys. Were you surprised when the piano fell on his head?
Well, he did warn us right beforehand, so that's on you for being surprised. He said, "Keep an eye out for those fallen pianos," and then, boop! What do you know?
I didn't keep an eye out for fallen
Some
pianos.
good VFX there.
Yeah, I know. That must be like After Effects version 1.03 or something.
It is crazy, man. These Viewer Takeover introductions are getting crazier and crazier. More produced and stuff by the week, man. It used to just be people pointing the camera at themselves saying, "Hey, my name's Brian Paul. This is Viewer Takeover." So cool. Keep up the creativity, guys. And send those videos to withoutparole@gmail.com. But of course, Rody's not the only person we want to thank. We also want to thank these people down here. The people who went to patreon.com/withoutparolegames, and they're the ones giving us $1 or more every single month. Guys, as you know, we don't ask for any money from you. We're just happy that you're here, members of our community, the cats. But if you like what you see and you want to keep this channel going for just $1 or more every month, that's how you do it, man. Patreon.com/withoutparolegames. AJ, who else do we need to thank?
We would like to thank those who also support us in another way by changing their name to something GameCat, something GameCat related, or something GameCat adjacent. And this week, we have 2 new GameCats to welcome to the GameCat Dojo. But since we have our special guest, we're going to allow Mr. Ryan Payton himself to read out the new GameCat name changes this week. Take it away, Ryan.
Eventually, we'll figure out if this is like allowing or forcing people to do it.
It is very much forcing. There's no question about it.
I look at this as a privilege. So first off, Bogey Cat Productions. Congratulations on your new name. It's very cool.
Cat. This is Bogey Man Productions, by the way, in case you guys didn't know. So thank you very much.
Bogey Cat Productions. Mm-hmm. There's a big capital CHT in the middle. So there you go. Just in case you didn't know. And then secondly, we've got Perfected Insanity GameCat, not GamCat, because I misread it the first time, and I'm sorry.
It's good. He got the purr in there, man. He got the purr. It's not just GameCat. He also got the kitty references. I like it. Thank you guys so much. If you want to, if you change your name to GameCat because you love us almost as much as we love you, make sure you put #GameCat in the comments below so we can give you a shout out on next week's show, guys. Usually this is the point where I ask Dave what we do on the show. But man, we've got Ryan Payton here. So I've got to ask you, man, like what's going on over at Camouflaj? Like how's the reception been to Iron Man VR? What are you guys doing over there these days? Just kicking back with champagne, eating strawberries? What's the deal?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't have much to respond outside of that. It's been about 7 or 8 months of just celebrating. But, in all seriousness, it was a strange time to ship a game that we're all incredibly proud of, right? But, we typically for game studios, you work really, really hard right up into the last second, and then we worked really hard on that update that you guys reported on, and then that's where like the team usually goes on vacation. And then, given the state of the world, there was very little vacationing happen, and so we ended up doing like a team survey. And I asked the team, like, "What do you guys want to do? Do you want to take a week off and just like staycation, or get some rest, or do you want to start incubating some new ideas?" And pretty much everybody came back and said, "Look, I'm going to vacation when we can vacation, but let's just get moving." So, obviously we don't have anything to announce today, but we've been just really busy, just doing a lot of fun R&D and for VR. We just loved all the amazing work that the team did on Iron Man VR, partnering with Sony and Marvel, and we just have this laundry list of things that we just want to work on. And we could talk about that if you guys are interested. But again, nothing like content-wise, but it's just there's so much more to learn in VR, and that's what we've really been up to. And then the last thing I guess I'll say is that we didn't expect this, but towards the end of last year, all these different nominations and then awards, like the game of the year that your audience gave us, was like this incredible boost of confidence, I think, for the team. And if you go to our website, www.camouflaj.com, you can actually see all the awards and nominations that the game won. It was staggering. So that's kind of like the story of what's going on with Camouflaj these days.
Surprise! People like to be Iron Man in VR.
Yeah, right.
Who would have
Big
thought?
shocker. Yeah, we realized that back in how many years ago when we started that project. From the first minute, I was like, wow, this is really cool. And it's hard to believe that many years later, it's in the hands of so many players. So yeah, it turns out that fantasy is strong.
Yeah, I love that story about how, back when you guys were first pitching this, it was sort of like, and who are you that wants to make this Iron Man game? But you guys proved,
right,
that you had the strength of the concept to really get it done. So it's a really cool kind of origin story for the game itself.
Yeah, it turns out like Iron Man and Camouflaj have pretty good origin stories.
Yeah.
And I oftentimes think back to that because, when you're developing a game, you're just, at least for me and I think the team, is that we just become so obsessed with it, and I don't leave a lot of space in my brain for anything else. And so this last half year or so, now that, because you're working on this game every single day, you're always thinking about it, you're answering questions about it, and then after July 3rd, there's nothing much more to do other than the update, and so and all the DLC that we put out, but it gave a lot of time for me to reflect and think back to like all the successes and some of the shortcomings that we had, and how we can grow as a team, how I can grow as a leader, and that's and I thought back to that time, Dave, about like us pitching that game and how different of a team we are these days now. I think having gone through that whole experience.
Dude, that DLC, the update was great. Was all that stuff in development like earlier on, or was that a direct response to reviews and Let's Plays and like the internet as a whole?
We love to complain. So,
yeah, big fans of complaining.
No, it's
complaining 10 out of 10.
I mean, I'll actually touch on something that we discussed previous. I know that it was actually Brian and I think we had talked around the time that the demo came out. So first of all, to answer your question, Brian, some of that content was already planned, and some of the content was just in response to users. And so, like for example, the ability to skip some of the missions. They didn't want to go back to previous areas. Like that sounded like a great idea, so we supported that, and I'm really happy the team was able to get that in. But there was like content like the weapons, for example. We already had them going through the pipeline. There's additional weapons that we're really excited to get to the hands of players.
And the decos.
New Game Plus.
Decos are great.
Yeah, the decos too. We continue to work on those. And so that was also something that we had previously planned, but we were able to finish them post-release. The one thing that we did talk about, though, that I think I might even kind of vaguely promise that if there was post-release a controversy about allowing the players to swap the trigger for the PlayStation Move button, because as you guys know, in our game, it's a little bit different than a lot of PlayStation VR games with the Move controls, right? Typically, the trigger is shoot, but given how Iron Man moves and everything, it made more sense to us, at least, that the thruster was the trigger, and then shooting with your palms open was the PlayStation Move button. And I think we had talked about like if users are finding that this is going to be a big issue to overcome when they're playing the demo, that we would think about for the full game, like patching and like the ability to swap them, even though that was going to be a lot of work. And we ended up like being pretty surprised and pleasantly surprised that it sounds like that players got comfortable with the way that we had designed it, and that was one thing I thought we might actually have to do, but yeah, we didn't at the end of the day.
Absolutely. That was something I remember when it came up, and it makes sense in most games. But for Iron Man specifically, I remember thinking to myself, I don't agree with everyone saying that these need to be swapped. I thought it was fine. In fact, the majority of the control scheme I thought was really creative, really intuitive, and really fluid. And I mean, just the way you can bend your wrist to have nothing but the light tracking and to be able to bend your wrist and do different moves and stuff. I thought that was like one of the strengths easily. Absolutely.
Well, yeah. And I want to, say before I say this, that this is a compliment, although it may not sound that way at first, but I think a strength of the game is that at the beginning, it is kind of tough to get into the controls for anybody at first, because it's not easy to just hop into the Iron Man suit. That famous scene at the beginning of, I think, the first Iron Man, where he's just bouncing off the walls and he has no idea what he's doing and stuff. That's how I felt, which tied me into the experience of being Iron Man. And then you kind of have to learn to grapple with the controls, because how easy would it really be to fly the suit around? So I felt like it kind of made sense in the context of the game to have a little bit of trouble at first getting the hang of the controls.
Yeah, and a lot of I think really fair people like you, Dave. We really appreciate that, because if it wasn't for that movie scene, I think a lot of more people might have been saying hey, it's hard for me to get used to the controls right out of the gate, because it is so different. And I don't know if you guys noticed playing the full version of the game, but we spent a lot of time trying to give players opportunities to get familiar with the controls and the different nuances, because we are introducing so many new things to the player. And if anything, if I go back, I would actually have extended it even further, because we're asking people to walk, chew gum, listen to the radio, skip over a step. All while it's raining, cats and dogs holding an umbrella. It's for the first time you're doing all these things. Because most games we're playing, even in VR to a certain extent, you're building on these kind of verbs and these actions that previous games have introduced. You're typically holding down L2 to hold your gun, to aim your gun, and you're firing with R2. That kind of paradigm, right? But with Iron Man, like you mentioned, AJ, the weapon swapping, you don't swap weapons like that in any other game, right? You don't shoot out of your palm like you do in our game, which I have a funny story about if you guys are curious. We don't you're not moving around using the thrusters like in our game. There's just so many of those things that in order to fulfill the fantasy of being Iron Man, we felt like we really needed to support, and pairing those as best we could to the PlayStation Move controls. But what that meant was that the team had this long list of things that we had to teach the player before they can go in and really, really feel like Iron Man.
I'm glad you cut it off where you did, though, because I don't, on the flip side of that, I don't like a game, the full single player experience, to just feel like a tutorial. So I'm usually on team rip the Band-Aid off and learn and stuff like that. I do have a quick question for you. I'm a big fan of one of your lead designers, Ryan Darcy. And he's a really, really nice guy. I DM him on Twitter from time to time. And there was a bet about this game between, I think it was you and him, about a steak dinner or something was on the line. And it was about somebody beating the challenge, the final challenge in the game within the first 24 hours. Can you confirm that? Did anybody ever end up beating that challenge within the first 24 hours? I know I got close, but I failed. And I told him, I was like, I'm sorry I let you down.
So I'm so happy you're bringing this up, AJ. I have two things to say about Ryan Darcy. First of all, I agree with you. He's a great guy. We're very lucky to have him on the team. And second, I typically just destroy him in every single bet that we have. And I'm starting to feel bad. Okay. So, this one though, so I bet him about how snap turns worked in our game, about how rocket punch worked. We bet, we would go to we went to PAX and we're watching how users are interacting, and we're settling bets that way. And we have a healthy competition. I think it's part of the fun working relationship we have. and he's competitive just like I am. On the note about the final mission, which internally we called M99, which I believe is called the Golden Avenger in the game, post credits, insanely difficult mission that is not really meant to be cleared by most human beings. It was like a crazy idea I had one day, and the team supported it, and I still really appreciate them doing that, because we knew that probably a fairly small percentage of people would ever be able to get to the end of that, right? So this is it has 40 different waves. It typically takes about an hour to get through, and you have to basically play perfectly. And so the bet was, yes, would within like 24 hours, 48 hours, would a player finish it? And sadly, Ryan Darcy and I have something of like an election controversy on our hands, where depends on how you it depends on how you define who finished it in time. So without getting into it, there's we have a friend of the studio who had played it before and finished it before internally to help us test it, did complete it, I think, within 24 hours or 48 hours of the retail version. I don't count that, but I think Ryan Darcy is. So that's kind of the state of the union on that one.
Interesting. He's playing dirty, huh?
He is. Yeah, that's okay. But the good news is that we've had like a fair share of people that actually finished it, which shows absolute mastery of the game. And that's so much fun to watch when people are doing it on Twitch and on YouTube.
It's tough. It is very tough. Like I said, I got far into it, but then I caved towards the end. Towards the end, you guys threw the whole kitchen sink. But I'm really glad you guys kept that in there. I thought it was one of my favorite parts of the experience for sure.
Cool. Well, thank you. We had a lot of fun with it. You could tell the dialogue, which was written in part by James Clinton Howell. He did a great job with that. We just had fun. This post credits, the serious story's over. We kind of like, let our hair down a little bit.
Ryan, was there you were going from Republic to Iron Man and kind of doing like your own thing, and then suddenly doing a thing that's sort of like watched over by Sony and Marvel? Like, I mean, that seems like a pretty big, you just kind of do your thing, and then suddenly you're kind of like in a little bit of a box, like you're restrained in certain ways, right? And I'm sure some of those ways are creatively constrained, just because you're working with an established IP. Was there a yearning while you were making Iron Man to be like, man, when this is over, can't wait to get out and like, just like develop our own new IP again, and just like and kind of blow the doors wide open on your next game?
Yes, there was that feeling, especially early on. I've been so blessed to be able to work in such big video game IP like Metal Gear and Halo, and then going off and being able to direct a project of our own creation like Republic was extremely refreshing for me and really satisfying. And so, yeah, it was hard for me, Brian, like early on. You get on a call with Marvel, for example, and Bill Roseman's telling you that your idea is probably not the best and there's a better way to do it. It's hard, I know you guys value your independence, and like I value ours. But one thing, I think it was a good learning lesson for me. And over the course of the project, I think that we really started to grow as a team because of the feedback we were getting and learning how to collaborate with Marvel and then with Sony. And so early on, yes, I was yearning for that level of independence. But by the time we were shipping Iron Man, I think that we grew as a team and myself as an individual to the point where I don't think I need to go off and just do my own thing as much anymore. I think that part of maturity is you go, well, there's a whole book about this, but you start off dependent as a child. You become a teenager, and then you're super annoying and independent. And a lot of people never grow to the third and final step, in my opinion, which is interdependent. Is that together with other people, you can be greater than you can be on your own. And I look at that as like, hey, we love partnering with studios and other companies to be better than we can be on our own.
Well, you came to absolutely the right place to talk about maturity, because we are all some of the most mature people I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure how many of us have made it to that third stage yet, to be completely honest with you. I know that I haven't. So
grasping at the second stage, even,
Well, I'm down there with you guys. I'm trying to get to the third stage.
It's a very mature answer, I'll tell you that. So what do you think, guys? Is it time to dive in and take over, let the viewers take over? Let's put it that way.
Yes, I suppose we could.
Yeah.
That is the name of the game, isn't it?
It is, in fact. And Dave, why don't you tell the people at home how they can submit their questions to Viewer
Why,
Takeover?
Absolutely, Brian. Here's what you guys can do. There's a few ways to get us your questions out there on the internet. Our favorite way is if you joined our Discord, where there's a link in the description below. Discord's a great place. We're actually recording this on Discord right now. We do everything on Discord. And there's a whole channel in there just for viewer takeover questions. So just drop one in there and we will skim through. And if we like it or if we hate it, or if we want to make fun of you in a certain way in front of everyone, we'll do that.
Probably.
And otherwise, you can just leave a comment on any YouTube video on this channel, of course. I'm going to suggest once again that you go back to Brian's earliest videos.
They did it, man. They did it. I can't believe
they did it. Yes,
they did do it.
I love it.
Yeah, but
I want some comments that have to do with the source material, like what you're looking at. Really show me that you got and watched those videos. Anyways, leave a comment with a question with the hashtag viewer takeover on it, and Brian will find it. And next week I'll do a much better intro of this section, I guarantee you.
That was great.
Yeah, that was pretty good, actually. It was nice. Dude, your voice is so soothing. I just want to it's like that, along with the engines of the the Starship Enterprise. Man, like I feel like if you read me a book, Dave, and I had the Enterprise engines purring in the background, I would fall asleep like that every single night.
I could maybe. Do you think I could start a thing where I read like Star Trek screenplays over the hum?
Yeah, I
mean, just charge people a few bucks a month. You know,
you got my Patreon support already.
All right, there we go.
Absolutely, Ryan, you're our guest today, man. Why don't you read the first question that we have from the viewers?
All right. So the first question is from Billy Paw, the Game Cat. How do you think PlayStation VR1 can remain viable? The competition is heating up, the hardware is outdated, and the developers are surely looking to develop for more popular headsets. That's the first question. And so, if I could just to kind of dig right into it in terms of my opinion on this, I'm curious what you guys think too. Is that it's I'm just so enamored by VR and PlayStation VR in general. The truth be told, we had something of an option back when we were developing Marvel's Iron Man VR about like what hardware partner we would want to go to along with Marvel to see if there could be a partnership. And Camouflaj universally came back and said, hey, we just love the PlayStation VR. We think it would be a great home. And we're so happy that we landed there. And not only as a game, but also as a hardware bundle. So that was so cool to see in the stores, and really, really love the partnership. And so, well, obviously, we hope that the PlayStation VR remains like a viable hardware for as long as possible, and as long as there's like new content coming out, I feel like that's what's going to happen. You got Hitman 3 that just came out.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I know of 3 unannounced games, and they're all very cool. So I think that your viewership and PlayStation VR community in general is going to really love.
I think what makes this, I mean, I'm 110% with you in that you just got to have some games and some great games. Hitman 3, I don't know if you had a chance to play it, but it was pretty incredible. Just from a technical level, what they were able to do, I thought was pretty amazing. I think what makes it a little tougher right now is this is kind of new territory that we've never been before. VR this was like the first the birth of VR. And so like there's likely a long road of evolution and stuff that we get to be. I've always felt really privileged to be a part of this because I feel like we are like kind of ground zero, and it's come a long way just in this 4 years. I feel like it went from this crazy Wild West to getting a little bit more towards like one straight direction, and it's just been really exciting, man. And yeah, I think the games can definitely deliver a lot. I do get a little discouraged when I see some like big media outlets, not naming any names, like when Hitman 3 came out and they're like, oh, it's on PlayStation VR. Oh, it's going to be blurry, and oh, it doesn't have move support. And I do agree that I think games.
Wait, I think you're talking about without Parole. I think that's that's what we said before launch.
You don't want to name names.
That's
no,
weird.
Absolutely not. No, but it was like, and I could tell they hadn't even played it yet, because I understand making the assumption that being on the older hardware that it's going to have some limitations. But Hitman 3 proved that this thing is capable of so much, like graphically, performance wise and stuff like that. And if they keep delivering on the games, then I think it can definitely make the best. Every PlayStation is known for always having a grand exit with their consoles and stuff. You get some of the best games at the end of the generation.
That's exactly what I was going to pinpoint there, because really, I mean, if you think about this like a console instead of like a replaceable piece of consumer hardware that you have to buy a new one every 16, 18 months, Oculus Quest kind of deal, like some of the best games, as you said, come out at the very end of a console life cycle when people have really come to grips with what is the best way to use this hardware, because they've got years of experience under their belt. And I think, I mean, we're in that kind of sweet spot now. Like Hitman is one great thing we're going to get this year, but I don't think it'll be the only great thing that we get this year. So I think this has got a long tail on it as far as hardware goes.
You know, we're in uncharted territory here when it comes to successful video game peripherals. I'm a big video game historian, and I mean, you can count on one hand what kind of peripherals were actually successful, and I think you could definitely put PlayStation VR near the top of that list, right?
Right next to the Dreamcast fishing rod, probably.
Yeah, right there, and next to
the Power Glove.
I guess, I mean, way more successful than Power Glove, Sega CD, Sega 32X. You know, maybe the best one you could say outside of this one is like the expansion pack for the N64. But I mean, like, come on. So, like, this is an interesting experiment, I think, in terms of, you know, mid-life cycle, add a VR unit to your console. And watch like the user base really grow to a really substantial number, to the point where it is viable for developers to continue to focus and support the hardware despite like its age, right? So like you guys, like I'm enamored by the technology and by what developers are doing. And I just have to say, like, I guess one other thing is that had Iron Man VR came out 2 years prior, it would not be nearly as good. And even if we had the same amount of development time, it's because we are playing everything. Everybody's playing everything. We're all learning about what makes great VR experiences. And so that's why I was just so excited about, like, for example, from the Game Awards and also your guys' award show last year, just like the amount of high quality content that we're seeing out of developers, and also from big name IP. That's another big thing that Hitman's providing, and thankfully Iron Man, Star Wars Squadrons, Saints and Sinners, and many more. I mean, Half-Life Alyx, obviously on PC. That's such a big component that I don't think people talk enough about, is that we want more people to play VR, and one of those big components is bringing in these massive IPs to get people excited because they want to live in those worlds.
I kind of take issue with the question, to be honest. Sorry, Billy Pa, because the competition is heating up. Obviously, we're seeing that from the Quest side, but the hardware being outdated is funny because when you look at the closest competition being the Quest, it's like, yeah, the Move controllers are outdated, but they were outdated from day one. Like, the power behind the headset is the PlayStation 4 or the Pro or PlayStation 5, and that power is stronger than the Quest 2 already, right? And you have more hard drive space to work with. And then you take that even a step further, and what did we just get? The PlayStation 5 patch for No Man's Sky. So now we're actually taking advantage of the power of the PlayStation 5 and putting it through the headset. And then you see something like Hitman, and you're like, man, this is literally what I thought next gen VR would look like already. It's already here. So like, the hardware in some respects is outdated, but in other respects, I feel like we're kind of like just hitting our stride.
To compare, PSVR to Quest and say which one's outdated, I mean, obviously the Quest came out more recently and it has some fancy things in terms of, the inside-out tracking and the improved controllers and all this stuff. It's easy to pick up and play, and these are all really important things. But the games themselves, like Hitman is not an outdated game compared to anything on Quest. I mean, I spend most of my time on Quest playing mini golf, poker, and watching movies with people in big screen. And so these are all things you could easily pull off on a PlayStation VR. They just aren't there yet in the software, ecosystem. But I mean, as we've said before, software is a really big thing in driving people in. So those kind of smaller experiences that are tailored to the Quest, I hope developers start to bring to PSVR later on once they've got those initial Quest sales in, because they really are all viable on this hardware as well. And it sucks to feel like you're getting left behind on a platform just because the games aren't there yet, even though the hardware could easily, perform what it needed to.
Yeah. In 2021 looks amazing for PlayStation VR. Like between now and basically May, we're just stacked. We're totally stacked. A lot of them, yeah, are games that are coming over from PCVR and Quest. But it's like, if you've been like me and like pretty much dedicated to your PSVR, then these are all new games, and it's great. You know, I'm like, Layers of Fear just got accidentally announced, I think. And I'm like, and I'm so excited for that, man. I'm so excited to put that thing on and scream in front of everybody like a baby. Like, that is my favorite thing to do in VR, and I get to do it multiple times over the next few months with Hinge coming, and I don't know if Summoner is going to be any good, but it's coming. Like, it's a thing, man. Like, and I'm very excited. I think, you know, this year could be the greatest PSVR year yet.
Should we move on to the next question, guys? Just out of the interest of time.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
This is from Jay Meow. This is a little long, so here we go.
Can tag team halfway through.
Yeah, buckle up. Here we go.
Yeah.
Beat Games recently boasted about selling 4 million copies of Beat Saber with 40 million songs sold through DLC packs, which led to other VR developers boasting about their sales. On the surface, this seems like great news, but aren't these exceptions to the rule? The list of top-selling PSVR games always seem to feature the same few games over and over. What about the hundreds of indie titles that come out that didn't sell well? Is the VR industry doing well as a whole, or is this an indication that it's still struggling despite a few standout titles? Oh yeah, that's right. I guess you get to answer the question. So let's see here. I think what you're seeing, Jay Meow, is the maturation of the VR marketplace. That, you know, if I'm being frank, I don't think it didn't grow at the clip that, if you guys remember back in like 2016, what like very strange analysts were predicting, that they were like the kind of revenue that they were predicting. I don't think we're hitting those numbers. I think that's true when you look at the holistic, the whole of the VR marketplace. But the great thing is you have standout hits that show the viability of VR, such as Beat Saber, Half-Life Alyx. You know, it seems seemingly Valve really hasn't talked about numbers specifically, but it seems like it did really well. And I think also, actually, recently, I think it was Skydance, right? They talked specifically about how well Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners did.
29 million.
These
revenue.
are all. That's awesome. That's awesome. Those are huge benchmarks for the VR industry. So, but that being said, I mean, it's a crowd. It could be actually a pretty crowded market, as you guys said. There's like a lot of indie titles that are coming out, and so not everybody's going to be a winner. And I think that's just the reality of you know, the general marketplace in games, and whether you're on VR or not, right? So I mean, to me, I look at everything as like heading in the right direction. But if you, Jay Meow, are like me, you want to see more games having success, and you want multi-million selling games out there, which will convince your favorite developers and your favorite publishers to build even more VR games. I'm with you, and I hope this is just the beginning of something even bigger.
You know, I 100% agree with Ryan here in that it did seem, and I've mentioned this to both of you before too, that it did seem like that there was this, when there was this early push with VR, and it felt like it didn't have really time to mature, but it was already being pushed as if it was 100% evolved and ready for prime time, when I think it was like not exactly there yet. But what I love to see is that over the last 4 years, it has kind of evolved. It has already started to mature a little bit. It's no longer in its infancy. It's still a baby, but it's no longer just like so fresh. And this stuff that we've been seeing lately within the last couple months has been fantastic personally, because there's a lot of games that you're starting to see more and more that are sharing their numbers, being like when VR first came out, nobody was sharing any numbers at all, because it was, even though they could be successful, it still from the grand scheme of things didn't look like it was having much of an impact. So it's awesome to me personally to see that, yes, there are games like Super Hot, Beat Saber, all these games. I'm sure Iron Man is up there too, and Saints and Sinners and stuff. And it's awesome to see that the narrative has kind of changed from it's not ready, you know, stuff like that, to okay, we're starting to see results here. And this is where we want to be. This is where we get, I feel like this is the first foot in the door to taking that next step.
Yeah, and then when PlayStation VR and or PSVR without Parole is like just millions and millions of subscribers in the future, you guys could say that you were there at the beginning. And that's one of the fun things I think we could all look forward to, right? Because we were there before it was major.
Yeah,
it's like
Brian will have kicked us both off the show by then. But...
it's going to be like that indie band that you loved until they became mainstream, until they put out Dookie.
Yeah, nobody will like us anymore.
Green Day sucks now. All right, Brian, why don't you bring us into the final question?
Probably would be for me for the final question. So it's a Ray Pop.
Ray Pop. You got to say it right. He's one of our mods. He'll be upset.
Oh shoot. Okay, is it right? It's Ray Pop.
Ray Pop. Yeah, Ray Pop.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
I think it's a reference to like a whiskey and a Coke or something. He's Canadian, so I can't understand his references.
What's more important, bringing innovation to VR and pushing the medium forward with a ton of new and innovative features, or a reasonable price point to attract as many users as possible?
Price point is probably king here. I mean, you want to get people in the door. I don't know. I think 400 is probably where we need to sit.
Seems like that was an early barrier for people, was especially younger generation, I should say, that don't have their own income and stuff. I remember seeing online comments saying like, I can't afford it. I can't afford VR. VR is expensive. That was like one of those old narratives that we heard a long time ago. But yeah, I mean, obviously price is going to have to be a competitive thing. You see there's the Quest, which is obviously killing it, but then there's also these rumors of the Apple VR headset that's coming out that they're saying, and of course this is just speculation because we don't actually know, but the Apple thing is rumored to be like really expensive, really
$3,000 is what I heard, which is exorbitant. I can't even believe that.
Right. I think you got to find a middle ground here. I think you try to get the most features and with having the lowest cost. Like that seems just like the practical, sensible answer to me.
I think there's a clear set of features you have to hit that aren't that crazy at this point. Like if you're Sony developing a headset, inside-out tracking, you can probably nail that pretty easily at this point. It's been done enough that you can learn from other people and make your own version of it. Improving the controllers, no brainer. I'm sure we've seen like 90 patents for these things, so they're already working on that. I don't think that they need to come out with anything insane beyond just maybe putting the haptics from the DualSense into some new VR controllers, because I think that would position them in the market in a way that nobody else really has. If you pull back on that bowstring and you feel the resistance a certain way, I think that will go a lot as far as immersion. But really, they don't have to do a whole lot to push it forward at this point, because these baseline things get you to a really reasonable VR experience that's fun, and you have all the controls you need. You don't have to worry about tracking issues. If they nail that in comfort, I think they don't have to do a whole lot to try and reinvent the wheel at this point.
I think you guys are right that this used to be part of the narrative, is that it was to get into VR used to be like $1,000 investment, right? Which is just too much for most people. And then the hardware is starting the dust is settling in terms of like what is desired in terms of hardware features. But yeah, for me, I think just to answer the Rypop's question is, for me, it's about content, and it's like there's this old like Nintendo adage about the name of the game is the game, and they're the masters of older, somewhat antiquated hardware, but the games are so good that people don't care. They're going to buy it anyway, right? And it goes back all the way back to the Game Boy, really, with just four shades of gray, right, if you will.
Right.
But with amazing games that just stomped on the Sega Game Gear, which had a color screen, and my favorite portable growing up, the Atari Lynx, rest in peace. Loved it so much, but the games were on the Game Boy, and I'm sitting there with my cool Atari Lynx that I worked so hard, part-time jobs, weeding and pressure washing for my father. But it's still sitting there in the corner as I'm playing Link's Awakening on the Game Boy. So for me, it ultimately comes down to content, and I really hope that more developers and continue to develop VR games, and again more IP come in, like big name IP that they're creating, as you guys know, and I'm sure your listeners are in agreement. We don't need any more experiences. We want real video games. We want them to be as long as possible, high quality content in these worlds that we love. And I think as long as developers continue to grow and there's a home for this content, that the VR user base will continue to grow as well.
I had an answer, but now I can only think about Toki going ape spit in Junkyard Dog or Scrapyard Dog. All these Lynx games.
I played both of those.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I did too. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I think I'm pretty happy with the PC market, like, innovating. You know, they're going to do the haptic vest, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that, and they're going to get treadmills, and they're going to just, like, experiment.
Cyber shoes. We're wearing cyber shoes now, boys.
Right. And I'm like, you know, over here on the console side, it's like part of being a console gamer means that, yeah, you do get cheaper hardware. And I wouldn't want to sacrifice the cheaper hardware for you know, all of these experimental things that half the developers aren't even gonna like be interested in taking advantage of.
You're right.
So I think
you also get games that are, generally speaking, at frame rate. Sometimes they dip, but for the most part have passed certification properly. And you get what console gamers want. Is they just want like the easy experience, just to like have to deal with updates and drivers and all the other crazy stuff that you just don't know what you're downloading on PC, right? As much as I love checking out that stuff too, there's something nice about just coming home and like loading up the PlayStation VR and just playing a new game and not have to worry about what
changing your graphics card.
Changing your graphics card or whatever. So there's Brian, I think that's a really great point about where a lot of the ingenuity, a lot of the experimentation happening on PC is awesome, and it's amazing and so encouraging how much Valve is continuing to support VR. I think we should point out. And Half-Life Alyx is, in my opinion, one of the best things that's happened to PlayStation VR fans. It brought so much additional legitimacy to VR when it was nominated not just for VR Game of the Year, but for Game of the Year for a lot of outlets, and won Game of the Year for GameSpot.
Right.
Not VR Game of the Year. Game of the Year.
Right.
Yeah, a VR game. That's a huge landmark moment for VR.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Agree. To Brian's point, I see a lot of the PC developer side. They're really interested in like the new things, the breakthroughs they can come up with, the finger tracking and stuff and stuff like that. But to Ryan's point, it's like none of that matters to me if there's not a good game. Like there has to be, like, you can have all these little features and stuff which can add to the immersion, add to the experience, but if there's no core game, that's going to be a problem for me. That's problematic, and that's
why you guys loved Saints and Sinners.
Yeah,
it's a real game, and it's a real game that is built for VR, and it's got a great loop. And I watch you guys just for many months, and your community just loving on that game, because that's exactly what I think you're talking about, right, AJ? It's not like a game that was ported from flat screen. It's not an experience. It's a very solid, deep, repeatable game that those guys just did such an amazing job on.
Yeah. Same with Iron Man. I mean, honestly, it's you get the experience out of the game, and it's still, it's, imagine if you just made some Iron Man experience where you just you kind of just sit around, or like you quickly just like fly through a thing. Like it would have taken away so much from it. And instead we get a full-fledged game, a story, the gameplay, all of the above. And that just all comes together for me for like the perfect experience, having all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, I got nothing wrong with experiences, but typically games deliver better experiences than what the experiences try to do. So,
one thing I want to bring up here too, and when you mentioned Nintendo earlier, it's got me thinking about this. But an exciting part of
Virtual Boy. Are you thinking about Virtual
No,
Boy?
I'm actually thinking about the Wii specifically. The Wii.
Okay, cool.
In terms of like, you're talking about something catching on and taking over the market, whatever. The Wii was a console that was able to attract all these people who were not gamers, quote unquote gamers.
Right.
Like your grandma could play bowling with you, and maybe she'd pick one up for when the kids come over. And, they'd have something to do. It's very intuitive. And I think that VR opens up a brand new space for games like that I really hope, I know Quest has been trying to capitalize on that. I hope Sony does as well, because that is a huge market that could really push VR forward in terms of being a consumer base for these kinds of capital G gaming experiences, but just, a way to use it that's intuitive and connects people and has that social aspect to it.
That's right, Dave. I was actually going to bring up the Wii in the context of the price question that we got. is I don't know if you guys remember, but when the Wii came out, there was a lot of controversy about how expensive it was at $249 US.
Really?
I don't know, but if you adjust for inflation right now, I don't know how much that would be. Well over $300, I would assume. And people thought it was $50 too expensitive.
Wow.
But it turns out they had the content. People wanted to play Wii Sports.
Yeah.
And then they wanted to play Wii Fit, and then they wanted to play. There's a handful of other multi-million selling games, but yeah, I think it's, to me, that's why I don't focus so much on the price. I think we're in that realm of price being okay as long as the game, there's enough great games for people to justify the hardware purchase.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny. All I remember is people having to run through the store with their Wii's covered and them being sold out everywhere.
Oh, I had to wait in so many lines to get a Wii eventually.
I don't remember the controversy over the price. That's interesting.
There's a price controversy. I do remember that happened around the same time, but I think maybe that's a topic for another show, because this show is coming to an end. Ryan, before we thank everybody and send everybody on their way, where is the best place for everybody to follow you and keep up with what's happening with you and your team over at Camouflaj?
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, but I don't post much, so it's going to be pretty boring. But what I would recommend is that you follow Camouflaj Twitter address. We're at Camouflaj at CAMOUFLAJ, spelled a little strange. Apologies for that. But yeah, we're just heads down, so you're not going to hear too much from us right now. Just really, really thankful for the opportunity to develop Marvel's Iron Man VR, to be on your show, and to be able to celebrate the amazing award of the awards, actually multiple.
Yes, I have to tell you, congratulations. The reception, the overall reception, all the awards you got at the end of the year, man, very well deserved, and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely send our love to everyone at the team, and thank you so much, man, for taking time out of your day and hanging out with us, silly little YouTubers over here, man. We really appreciate it.
No.
Speaking of YouTubers, make sure you follow Dave over at Dave Station VR. Follow AJ at The Underground, PSVR Underground. Also, if you got a viewer takeover introduction, send that right along without parole@gmail.com. If you change your name to GameCat and you want maybe some other developer to read your name, your brand new GameCat name next week, make sure you put hashtag GameCat in the comments. Also, consider supporting us on patreon.com/withoutparolegames. We ask you for nothing, but if you want to give us something, that would be amazing. That's it, guys. This was Viewer Takeover. My name's Brian Paul. This is Without Parole. I don't know how to end the show, and we're out.
So I want to bring in a special guest to the show. This is not a joke, actually. This is actually a replica of my poor kitty that passed away almost 2 years ago. I know that you guys at the show are big cat fans, and all of your listeners as well. So this was a replica that was created by my colleague from Camouflaj, Stephen Howard. We've been working together for 7 or 8 years, and he felt really bad about my cat Coco passing. So this is the new cat guest to PlayStation to PSVR Without Parole.
So cute.
This is Coco. Very amazing. He asked for a bunch of different photos of how she looks. She actually had cancer, so her jaw was removed. She had her little tongue sticking out for the last year of her life. So they even did that. They did just an amazing job. So again, this is my cat. She kind of hangs out with me at the office to keep me company while we're working on Iron Man.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cute.
It's actually beautiful, man. A year ago, I wouldn't have understood this story at all. I'd be like, what's wrong with you? But I kid you not, ever since Tornado came into my life, the first pet I've ever had. I grew up in a pet-free household. My dad claimed he was
never had a pet before?
Never. My parents, my dad claimed he was allergic to fur, and I called bullshit from day one. But he was just he didn't want a pet, and I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
And now, but when I got Tornado, she changed my life. She made me a better person, and she makes me a better person every single day. And I have more of a connection to Tornado than I do half the people in my life. So I totally understand this connection, Ryan, and I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, Carlos needs a little cameo here.
As a side note, too,
Nice.
my previous cat that I had, who also passed away, looked exactly the same. His name was Tuxedo. His name was Tuxedo.
Oh, nice.
Because he had
the
white chest, and he was all black. I've always believed black
awesome.
cats are good luck, man. I don't care what
I do
anybody
too.
says. There is no such thing as a bad luck cat ever.
No, Coco brought us like so much love for 10 years, and yeah, big lucky cat. You know, we're sad that she passed around 10 years old, but it was 10 really amazing years. And just like you, Brian, with Tornado, like, yeah, thanks to Coco, I felt like, I learned a lot, and about love and commitment. And it was always just so, even late nights working, I go home and she's waiting. Yeah, that was really, special time in my life. And I think we're really lucky when we can have pets like that, and taking good care of those people that care, right? Yeah. Anyway, sorry for crashing your show with another guest that was not was uninvited.
Awesome.
But I'm tearing up, man. I was like,
I know.
This is not how I expected this show to end.